Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Slowing Down to Speed Up, Holistic Three-Pillar Training, presented by our Head of Leadership Growth at Educate 360, Dr. Jay Pugh. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I will be assisting in moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use that chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. J.
Hey, thank you so much, Mariella, and thanks for everybody for joining. This is one I'm really excited about teaching. I'm hoping that you're all ready to learn a little bit about what organizations are going through and what we need to do to kind of get ourselves back, recalibrate, and really gain a little bit more understanding in what today's workforce is looking like. And so I want to welcome you to Slowing Down to Speed Up. I'm Dr. Jay Pugh. I serve as our head of leadership growth with this organization, and I've been in this space for over a decade, and I hope that you all are ready to have some fun. So, kicking this off, I want you to think of what difficulties come into play when we're talking about keeping up with speed and performance in the workforce. What difficulties come to your mind? If you can, I'd love for you to type a response in the chat. What difficulties come with keeping up with speed and performance in today's workforce? Love this. Number one, we have resources. There's time restraints. Excellent. Yeah, things falling through the cracks is a good one. Our mindset, I really love that, is the ability to have our mindset to shift. Do we have the right people, staffing? There can be burnout, exhaustion, attitude. What sort of priorities or what sort of performance indicators are coming into play? The key word I love that I'm seeing right now is this sort of idea of stress. And when we get into this, there can be miscommunication. There can be missing opportunity to focus on optimization. There could be a failure to commit. There could be a missing piece of accuracy. The challenge that comes down to this is when we look at this from an organizational perspective, there's three major areas of focus that we look at. And so what I want to talk about is what's happening in today's workforce. And all of you are right. All of these factors that are contributing to these really come down to the state of our organizational transformation. Number one, organizations are really running into a heavier pace to keep up. We've seen this with integrations of AI. We've seen this with process demand, that silos are starting to break down from functional types of organization. What happens is companies are trying to really implement and keep up, and we need to add this and do this and implement this. And what's happening is we're missing alignment and convergence in what we're trying to do. So what that tells us as an organization is we really have to slow down to speed up. And yeah, and I love what I'm seeing too, is that with the addition of remote work, now the silos can become individualized in this case too. So we have to make sure our organization is more aligned, that there's better convergence. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is where and how. Because if we don't do this, what happens is any type of digital transformation, 7 out of every 10 companies that try to go through digital transformation, their companies have found that they did not find success. One of the key components that came to that was because of a lack of leadership skills to implement. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean managerial leadership, but that is one of the factors that come into play. I want to talk to you about the key three. And that's, and I like that from, I think Caitlin, what I is mentioning here is there's an average of 20 hours a meeting a week. And so what we're doing is we're spending so much time either in discussion or we're spending not enough time in discussion, and we can't determine what is the right amount. And the reason why there's not a right amount is because we're not focusing on the right priorities. So here are three major pillars of organizational transformation that we really need to look at. The first piece of this that I really look at as a whole is, are our stakeholders, and that could be from a leadership perspective, that doesn't just mean the people at the top, but everybody in the organization that serves in some sort of capacity in a leadership role needs to make sure that there is buy-in in the culture that's occurring. Because if there's not a belief in the system, a belief in the organization, a value being driven, what happens is nobody's going to commit to it, and it's going to be a state of compliance, and that is going to slow down productivity, belief, and production. So with this, if you don't have that leadership, that piece is going to be a big component. So we really need to skill up in our ability to get buy-in as a leader in our organization. The second piece of this is technology. It's knowing that you have the tools, the knowledge, and the applications to be able to differentiate yourself in the field. You will see, and by a thumbs up or within the chat, or not, just whichever sort of way you want to react, how many of you are seeing this implementation of AI and it is just the wild, wild west out there for you, whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Microsoft Copilot, or it's just we're throwing AI to whatever can stick. How many of you are seeing that as a whole? Yeah. And some are going yes, and some are going not yet. On a scale of 1 to 10, I just want to ask this question. Scale of 1 to 10, how honest, to be with yourselves, do you feel like your organization is implementing technological facets like AI in your organization? Very good. We have and that's what I love to see, is that we have some that are like, yes, we are crushing it. We have others that are like, it's okay, but it could be better. There's others that are like, no, we're really kind of missing at the moment, and that's what we have to look at. So technology in this case, we're going to define a little bit more in the space of efficiency. This also could mean cybersecurity is another area of focus that really comes into play. Are we making sure our organization is secure, that we're in stasis of compliance? The larger the organization yours becomes, the more that we have to make sure those components are going into this. There's so much money lost in breaches that organizationals die and fail because of it. So technology, the way we implement, has to be really important. The third piece of this is process. I will tell you that if you have project managers in your space or business relationship managers in your space, this is where knowing that you have a true structure, process, program to be able to implement things more effectively, especially if you have functional silos everywhere, that has to be in place. We have to make sure that there is meaningful process. I can't stress enough the importance of building in meaningful processes. Otherwise, what happens is that the innovation you're trying to bring in gets missed because everybody has a different way of doing something. And it's not saying that we need complete uniformity, but we really do need consistent process across our organization so that goals are understood amongst the way that we do things. And that's the thing, is that if you have a sales organization doing one thing, an operations organization part of the organization doing something completely different, you have a marketing team that does things in a completely different space, you have a product team that does this, you're going to be moving like a train that is not connected. And that part slows down the ability to gain progress. So, what happens if we have two of these things and not one? Or what happens if we have one of these things and not two? So, what I want to go into is, if you do have if you have your technology and you have really good process, but you're not investing in what we call the power skills, we're not putting effort into real power skills. And I like that PMI calls them power skills. I think that is a huge definition. They are no longer called soft skills because there's nothing soft about them. But your ability to have leadership, if it's lacking, you're not going to have buy into the vision. And one of the key words that's going to come into play here is, at best, you will have compliance. Do you know how much money gets lost due to just focusing on compliance and not commitment to things? How many of you, by a show of hands, maybe work harder because you have a company you believe in, a vision you believe in, or a leader that you work for that you believe in, that you dig a little extra for them because of it. This is awesome. Because of this, what that means is that money will end up being lost if you have diminished buy-in. So we have to invest in leadership capabilities, leadership skill sets, leadership profiling. We have to make sure that we have those sort of capacities built in, what we call the behaviors and characteristics. The second piece, though, is if you have leadership and you have great technology, what happens is chaos. And so this C we're going to talk about is chaos. And I will tell you that there is nothing worse than the wild, wild west of an organization. Now, I need to say that there is a difference between being agile. I think there's great benefit of being agile versus being overly fluid. Now, organizations can be fluid and organizations can be agile. But if you don't have a process in place, if you don't have what I call the glues of the organization, like project managers, or if you don't have business relationship managers in play, what happens is you have 4 different, 5 different, 8 different sectors of your organization working in 8 different silos with 8 different processes. The innovation that you're going to try to implement is going to be nothing but chaotic. And then what happens there is dollars invested into implementation also costs money. So we need to make sure that we are building in stronger processes. Sometimes this could be lean process. Sometimes this could be, having a little bit more of an agile or sort of those, or building in a more effective methodology to what a good process is going to be for your organization. If you don't have that, then what happens is you have everybody running by different standards. The last thing is that if technology is lacking, you have a digital disconnect. So if you have amazing leadership and amazing process, what we're actually missing in this case, believe it or not, is our willingness to change. How many of you have had an organization that you've worked with maybe in the past that you've heard the saying of, well, we've been in business for 40 years and we've been in business because we've always done it this way? The leadership might be very good, they might be influential, and the process may be so structured that at that point it becomes rigid and inflexible. And now, if you're trying to implement something new, there's now a fear that goes behind that change. And so we cannot run into these 3 sort of areas of getting compliance instead of commitment, having chaos instead of consistency, and having nothing wrong with change, but really having a fear of change instead of leaning into that agility and leaning into what is new to create better efficiency. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. What's funny is that many organizations, what they'll do is they will have one vendor that focuses on, okay, our technology implementations, and then another company that focuses on cybersecurity, and another factor that focuses on, our leadership, and another company that does that. I think I will speak a little bit more internally, that is one thing I absolutely love and believe in sort of Educate 360, who I work for, is that it really is a belief in being a holistic solution, that you can't have one without the other. And I think that that's got to be something that if whoever you're working with, whether it's internally or externally, that needs to be a big point, is that there's somebody that's looking at things from a holistic growth point and not just one sector. So, all right. My question for you, and Mariella is going to put up a poll for you, is this. Which of these areas sounds most familiar in your organization? And she's going to put up the poll for you right now. And I want you to take a quick moment and I want you to read these and say, you know what? We have a strong investment in technology, but we're not using it to fullest potential. Or we've great leadership in the organization, but we really don't have the structure or process for success. Or do you know what? We have an amazing, solid, and historical process, but we really have a fear of change and movement. Maybe it's, do you know what? We're looking at really how to build in for all three of these. We really do need a holistic solution. Maybe your organization is one to where you're looking at and saying, you know what? We really are on top of the game and probably leading the game in all three. We'll give this about 30 seconds. We'll give it another 15 to 20. We got about two-thirds of people responding so far, which is phenomenal. All right. So take a look at the results on this. I think it's really cool to know that, all as a group, about half of the people that responded really are focusing on, you know what, we're really needing to look at all three. We're missing maybe a little bit in each area, and that's perfect. I also like seeing that, you know what, we might have a fear of change and movement, which is meaning that in the technological advancement, we might need a little bit more effort. Maybe we have great technology, but we're not really using this to the full potential. Well, where is the buy-in to use it? So this is where I love to look at this as a whole, and I just really appreciate your participation in this. It really is good to see kind of where everybody is. I will tell you, in our case, even though we are in the space and we're one of the leaders of leadership technology and process, we ourselves are always looking to see how we can build on or grow on these capacities. So one thing I'm going to share in this case, I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks for today that might be helpful. Over the years, I've been in leadership now for well over a decade. I've been in the training space for almost two. And after years of mentoring other leaders and being in higher leadership, one of the things that I try to do is, number one, reduce the fear of the unknown when it comes to technology. Allow people to share the fears. It doesn't mean they live in them, but if they can't express them, what happens is that they will express them to somebody else in your organization, and then they will work against those principles. So I always allow room to say, well, talk to me about what your fears are in this. Talk to me about what concerns come into this place. One of the things I hear with AI is that, I fear that there's a replacement of a role that I'm going to be in. And one of the things we talk about in the replacement of that is, well, wait. AI is meant to be more generative, so it's actually going to free you up to not do the administrative things and allow your room for more creativity. But people don't necessarily see that until they have those dialogues. So I help them to understand roadblocks. The other thing is that if we are implementing certain things, I allow a succeed or learn mentality. Now, in cybersecurity or other things, we really have to make sure we're doing a lot of diligence first. But in a lot of other technology uses, whether it's Power BI or whether it's getting into other spaces of data analysis, or let's allow more of a succeed or learn mentality. We want our data to be very accurate, and I fully agree with that. But to get to that accuracy, we have to be able to learn what works and what doesn't to get there. So I'm a huge fan of removing failure for a small period of time to allow succeed or learn mentality. This enables people to want to dive into technology more. It allows them to want to participate more. It wants them to play and practice a little bit more. That's how I increase technological capability. The other thing, obviously, with technology is have them learn it. Have them learn it. Make sure they go through this. If they need to get certified, let them get certified. Allow that sort of opportunity for them to do this. The second piece that I get into is process. With process, I always like to say nothing is a bad process. There are pieces of process that are bad, but nothing is a bad process. So I try not to react if something isn't working to the capacity that it could be. I love that that's why we have project managers in our space, because it's something that we know there may be headaches, but our project managers they do an amazing job of really seeing how we improve certain pieces of our process to make it effective. But it's this mindset that, you know what, we're not going to implement more. We have a tendency to implement more technology or more things into things rather than actually looking at process to say, what frameworks are we using? What systems are we using? It's one thing to implement 6 different project management tools. It's another thing to make sure you're using the right one in the way your organization works effectively. I will tell you that many organizations, their tech stacks are through the roof, and they have 20 different programs when they could have 3. And so, what we really have to look at is what is our process of implementation to make it more efficient and effective. The other thing I like to do is I like to be nonlinear with process. I really like to expect a little bit of flexibility that the way this looks today may look differently than the way it does tomorrow. So, what we call this is really developing an agile mindset. Are we really living in an agile mindset? Meaning that, look, today this is how this looks, but a year from now this may look different. Are we comfortable with that? Do we have a mindset that is comfortable with that? That's why I always see some groups in technology that will focus more on sprints. And I like sprints because it is like 2 weeks at a time, and this is where it is. And then you look at the big picture of the results and you see, wow, we've really made some good, meaningful change in what we've done. The last thing that I always like is, and this is where my heart is a little bit more, so you'll have to forgive me, is in the space of people. I am a huge proponent that I don't believe that I'm teaching people how to fit a mold. I'm really looking to find how each person engages individually. That's a specialty in my area is strategic engagement, individual engagement. We teach a course called Mastering Meaningful Engagement that really gets into the space of how do we connect individually to meet people where they are? How do we see them for what they do and then bring them back to the middle to show them how what they're doing contributes to a greater good in what we're building? So I really look at that as an individualized motivator. I think we try to do this amongst a team a lot, and we do a good job with the team. But are we taking the capabilities to individually engage every person that we work with? Are we meeting them where they are? Are we seeing what qualities they exhibit? Are we showing them we see what qualities they exhibit? So your ability to lead is not just to manage, it's your ability to really individually engage other people. So that leads me to this next piece, since we're going to dive into a little bit of the people. And I like where we talk about loving the last point so much. And I'm seeing quite a few people type in, whether it's to the panelists or to everybody. I want you to think for a moment, why does that mean something to you? That last one, which one of these really stands out the most to you? And it could be, I think all 3 stand out. And that's also a good answer. Excellent. Seeing people, I'm seeing 3, seeing all, seeing 2, seeing, yeah. Somebody said that seeing this because it's a gift on their own, that's what we're unlocking. And that's exactly right. I like what Michael says is most leaders are not leader in title. And that's why I want to really differentiate. One thing we teach in the leadership sector of our business is leadership and management are 2 different things. Management is positional and it's functional. Leaders can lead from anywhere and they have the influence capability to really shine in their certain capacities to help the others see it and to grow. And I love that. More is not better. I really like that too, is that more is not better. Better is better. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, that leads me to this next poll. This is our second and final poll for today. Is which leadership skill? Mariella is going to post these up here. And Jennifer, I love what Jennifer says real quick before the poll hops up real quick on this one. And it's already hopping on. So we'll give a little bit more time for this, but I love that I'm seeing recognize them all as living documents, that there's a willingness to evolve. I love that forward thinking mindset. Now, this next question that comes in is, which leadership skill do you think is most underdeveloped in your organization? Ha! And I like this. So here's the thing, too. If you've already answered, and I always like to say which one is the most, that's why I say most underdeveloped. Most underdeveloped. Most underdeveloped. And if you have a couple, feel free to type those in the chat. It's always good for us to know. We'll give it maybe another 10 seconds. Wow, we have about 80% participation on this. This is fantastic. I like this. I like that optimizing use of time is included in there. I really like that. Melissa, I would probably categorize that in my view under the strategic thinking, because strategic thinking involves stronger efficiency in what we're doing. And so in seeing the results, you'll see it's very balanced. And I think a lot of you are mentioning too that, like, man, we need a lot of these areas, or we need all of these areas. The fact is that leadership is a constantly evolving practice. It's a constantly evolving practice. It doesn't mean that everybody goes, what has a tendency to happen that I see across organizations, between the ones that are more high functioning, high growth, to others that are a little bit more stagnant, is many people look at leadership and they go, okay, well, they did this leadership training a year ago, rather than having it be an evolving process in sort of this consistent approach towards continuous growth. And I think that latter approach is a really important mindset. So I really love seeing these overarching things of change management, and strategic thinking is a focus, and it's communication is a component for all. And the thing is that what happens in our leadership is we are very much caught in this fixed mindset approach, that we're trying to grow and trying to grow, but nobody can catch up. And part of the reason why this is because of what we call a three-level approach. When leadership is in sort of turmoil, if you will, what happens is level one leaders go to decide everything. They are typically ones that they are the ones going to make a decision. They're the ones that's going to dictate and decide. They're the ones that are going to push things. And how many of you might know a key term for this, where level one, and occasionally this does have to be here, is micromanaging maybe a little bit too much? How many of you have ever worked for a micromanager? And that's the thing, is that most times the challenge is they are staying in level one. They're staying in level one. There are times you have to be in level one, but you shouldn't stay there often at all. Meaning that the leader is deciding anything. And when you have this, what happens is that your time involved with them is minimal, because you're just digging and digging and throwing, and their buy-in is very, very low. So what do we do to get out of this rut? What we do is we spend time in the teaching. We spend time really focusing on teaching. What principles do we need to teach? What skills do we need to teach? What training do we develop? What do we do to educate more? That's the first T in growing our people. Once we start really seeing teaching happen, there's going to be a clue or a cue that's going to come into play, is that people are going to start wanting to throw out suggestions. When they throw out suggestions, what starts to happen is they're moving to more of a 1.5. There's a little bit more time spent to them. they're moving to level 2. They're making progress and moving to 2 whenever suggestions get made. At that point, what leadership needs to do is they need to spend more time in the talking it out. This is where, and I will tell you that how many of you say that you're involved in quite a few meetings. Boy, I'm in meetings 20 times a week, and I am in so many meetings and so many meetings and so many meetings. What Lord, yes, I love that one. This is once again where I say that more is not better. More is not better. What's happening though is you're in a stasis of talking it out. That's the second T in this. And so what happens is you're moving to leader or level 2, and level 2 is a very much and I like that in some cases there's somebody mentioning not yet, and that's perfect. We need more communication. So in some cases, it's we need more communication. In other cases, it's we need less communication. I say this because if you're finding yourself to where you're having too much communication, what's starting to happen is you might be talking it out too much. You've gotten to that point of saturation. Level 2 is a very servant leader mindset, which is awesome. Servant leadership is amazing. It's so good to know that somebody's in your corner and they're there for you and they're making this larger in scale impact. The problem, what's the one challenge with servant leadership? I'm going to ask the group, what's the one challenge with servant leadership? It could be that no one wants to make the final call. I didn't think about that, Jennifer, but that's a really good point. Making a tough call is good. The other thing is exhaustion and burnout. That's exactly it. The leader can get burned out and circles can get to there. And what happens is the leader feels like we're talking and talking and talking, but we're not gaining traction and we're burning our wheels. We're spinning our tires. So in this case, this is a good level to be at. I want to stress that this is a good level to be at. Level 2 is a good place. It makes people feel comfortable in sharing ideas. People feel comfortable talking to you. What happens though is efficacy becomes a challenge. And so what we need to do as leaders is we have to start strategically tailoring our questions to build better autonomy. We have to strategize. I can't tell you how many times that people will come to me and they'll say, Jay, I don't know what to do here. I could talk it out with them and talk it out with them and talk it out with them. Or what I could say is, what if I wasn't here? I always like to go to the bus or the lottery, depending on whether you're positive or realistic, as I say. I'm more of a realist. So I said, what if I got hit by a bus tomorrow? Other people are like, what if I hit the lottery tomorrow? The questions become, what would you do? We have to be more strategic in our question asking. We have to be more diligent in getting to solution-based questioning. That's a huge skill set that if we're more strategic in our questions, what happens is now we put the ball more in their court to make decisions. We put the ball more in their space to say, I want you to actually maybe run with this. I want you to see what that looks like. I got a couple questions, but after that, I want you to start seeing what running with this looks like. And once we get to that point, you'll notice that your time with them gets less involved, which means your time now is allowed to innovate more. Your time is more involved in the bigger picture, in the growth capacities. That's more of where we head. And when we get to that point, the ideal situation is I would love my high performing team to make decisions. I want you to decide. I want you to make that decision. I want you to do this. That's where we have to trust. So, in evaluating where each of your employees are or each of your team members, it's kind of looking and seeing in this case, where am I at with them? Do I need to teach them a little bit more? Do I need to spend more time talking it out with them? Have I talked it out to the point of saturation and I need to start strategically tailoring my questions? Do I need to let them run with the ball? What is it that I need to do here? So, that's our 4T approach towards growth. What are your thoughts on this? I want to take a pause. What are your thoughts on this as you're seeing this model of moving to level 1 to level 3? Give everybody a moment to type in the chat. I want to get your thoughts. Is there an area we're not focusing enough in? Is there an area to where, man, we haven't looked at this from a structure perspective? Like, man, I didn't realize that growth could actually have a structure to it. And I love what I'm seeing. Chandler mentions it can be inspiring when we go beyond the talking, when we actually get to solution, that there are ways to get to the solution. And the other piece I love, Debbie, is you're mentioning that it can be detrimental if we can't, as an organization, get ourselves to level 3. I like that, Claire, we can see how this maps in certain structures in our organization. These are the goals we got to work to. Now, if I may go back, and I love that some of us are identifying where we are. The process has taken too long, but it should be used in a structure. Excellent. And it could. And George, what we do then is trust small. When we teach this in a course, so I could spend a day on this. But when we talk about trust, we trust small. We trust on the things that don't have monumental stakeholder impact, but we trust on the smaller thing that builds succeed or learn mentality. That's a really good point. How to get rid of the egos that dominate. What we talk about facilitation skills all the time, so that's a course we have is facilitation skills, and how we sort of get those that talk too much and try to dominate. How do we get them to take a step back? And culture is a huge piece in this. Absolutely. This is awesome. Loving the feedback, folks. It's good to hear from your perspectives on what you're seeing in this. And that's the thing, is servant leadership. There's a pride, and I don't want to say it's a selfish pride. It's really a selfless pride in wanting to be the person that's always available and always supportive. But in that case, we do have to ask the question of enablement. Are we overly enabling in this case? Do we have to let go of the ball from time to time? I love this. Folks, loving the feedback you're giving me here. This is so good. So I want to talk one more thing about individualized engagement with people. So what we're going to talk about is, how do we individually engage other people that we work with? Well, the carrot and the stick, folks, they're not as useful. They're not as useful as they used to be. 30 years ago, whenever organizations weren't as globalized, where the market didn't dictate people could go if they wanted to, there are so many organizations, LinkedIn and recruiters and all kinds of things, that they have jobs at the ready. And what happens is that the carrot and the stick only provide more of a short-term focus in the way we motivate. How we really get people to stay, to grow, to commit, to thrive is what we call plant leadership. I individually engage every person in my organization, not just in my own team, but every person in my organization. I really look to them to see what types of plants they are to help them guide where they need to get to. That also means my boss. That means the other leaders, senior leaders that I work with. That does mean my team members. That means other departments that I work with. And so I want you to think about where you may sit and where others may sit in this case. And I'll share where I am, to be honest with you. And yes, the answer is you can be more than one of these. But I really talk about, if we're talking about stakeholder mapping, I want you to identify what behaviors and characteristics they value. When we really talk about more of transformational leadership, the first sort of archetype that comes into play is the cactus. The cactus can sometimes, yes, I always get this question, is, can they be a little prickly at times? They can. They can. But it's not because they want to be rude in any case. It's because they believe in self-sufficiency. They love pressure. They love storing their own water. They love being out in the heat. And what they don't always want is all of this heavy collaboration. They don't want the 90-minute talkouts of things. They want more strategy. They want more directness. They want more autonomy. I will tell you that deep down, as a human being, I'm sorry to say this, I am more of the cactus. I am. I know, right? But I love it. And the reason why is because I love pressure. I love being able to dictate. I love challenging. That's a huge piece. And there's nothing wrong with any of these. But I will tell you that I will tell you that I will speak very highly of my leader in our organization. She's probably one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. And I don't blow smoke on that. Um, she and I have had the candid conversation that I like to be left alone. I'm happy to collaborate. I'm happy to dive in, but I don't want a routine touch base. I don't want a weekly, how are you? I don't want that. To me, that doesn't serve as much effective time. But to her, and I'm going to get to where she is in just a little bit, she does value that. So for me, what I do is I orchestrate opportunity to reach out to her when we really need to have a deeper dialogue, and we will have a super deep dialogue when that occurs. But we know each other. And that's where effectiveness in individualized engagement is critical. Some people, though, are more orchid. I have people on my team that really need careful attention. They need you to not just care about the mission, they need you to care about them, care about the people they care about. They really like regular feedback, they love close collaboration. They touch base, and normally the questions they will ask is, I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. Or I want to make sure that I'm really actually being helpful here. I want to make sure that they are very caring. They are the care bears of the organization. Orchids are delicate in the way that they care. Not that they're fragile, but they're delicate in the way that they care for other people. And so you have to spend more time with them. You have to show more care with them. You have to be more human with them. And absolutely, I would say that is the Claire Bear. That is perfect. I love that. The Claire Bear. You got your nickname now. And yes, Jennifer, a question that you asked is, can somebody evolve through these leadership types as they grow with the company? Absolutely. I will tell you that probably if you asked me a few years ago where I would have been more of a deciduous tree, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And if you asked me probably 5 years ago or 7 years ago where I would tell you I was probably more of a rainforest plant. So they can change. These can change. But you really want to find where you're at what stages of your life you're in, and what stages of your organization you're in. And it's okay to ask. This is why I love teaching this stuff, because it's okay to ask. So the next one is the rainforest plant. Rainforests, they thrive on constant learning. They want to always know more. Let me know more. Let me learn more. Let me gain more. I need knowledge. What they really need is bring on the rain. I want the rain. I don't want the soil. I want the rain. Bring it on. They want to be showered with information. These are people that are always asking questions. They are always wanting to know more. And that's a huge, huge piece, is that they really want to know information. I will tell you, I have one director on my team that is an absolute rainforest plant. They want to know why something is what it is. They want to know why something is done the way that it is. They want to know more about what is going on with X, Y, and Z. No, and George, no, one plant is not better than another. The goal is to find your authentic plant that you're getting into, and what authentic plant they lean into a little bit more. One is not better than the other. And that's the thing, is some people are cactus rainforests. I would say in my case, I'm more of a cactus deciduous tree, whereas my boss is probably more of a deciduous orchid. They're both. She's always asking, how are you? And are you okay? And I just want to make sure you're good. And deciduous trees, right, are very much very adaptable. They love detailed collaboration. They love exploration. I have another director on my team that is very much a deciduous tree. And they are very much about adaptation and involvement and changing in the way that they do things. They are all about change. They love being different colors of the tree for different people. And I will tell you that even though I'm a cactus, I will tell you that I know I have a lot of deciduous mindsets. I'm very much that if you speak to me and if you're meeting me at my core, you'll find me to be a cactus. But if I'm really looking at the way I want an organization to thrive, I know that I want to be more deciduous. So that's why I know I kind of have two. I'm a deciduous cactus, ladies and gentlemen. That's where I am. And yeah, we all need the plants to breathe. That's why I'm saying that not one is better than another. There isn't one. And Jennifer, I love what you're saying here that now that we're in this company, we could have been a cactus and we might be evolving into a new plant, and that's perfect too. The biggest thing that I love to share with people is communicate your plant. Communicate your plant. I'm telling you right now that I've been a cactus for a while, but over time I've really learned that, man, I'm becoming more deciduous as I'm going, and I have to allow that to flourish. So in this case, the last one that's really important is the palm trees. Palm trees are resilient. They pride themselves in predictability and structure. These are more process driven people. They love their if you've ever seen a palm tree, they stand in hurricane winds. They are grounded and they are very great with process, but you have to let them allow them to move and move with those sort of changes that occur. They can be flexible with movement, but they need to know what is changing and why it's changing. And they need a little bit more understanding of pace. They don't like to be rushed. Palm trees grow slowly, but they grow consistently. And they really love great structure. And without them, all other trees would be uprooted. And so we need all five of these trees, but you got to talk to your people about what they are and how they need to develop. So let me ask you, if you were on my team or if you were in my organization, where do you sit? I've already seen some are like I'm a cactus rainforest or I'm a deciduous cactus or maybe I'm a orchid palm tree. Where are you all? Excellent. I love what I'm seeing right now. And we have a very good combination of things. I want to be a cactus, but I'm a palm tree. Good. Perfect. Some people are orchid rainforests. They are like, I just want everybody to grow. Let's shower you with knowledge. Let's make everybody feel good. That's good too. This is awesome. And it can be dependent on the situation. I love this question of if it's dependent on the situation, I want to ask this question. If Ashley was on Ashley's team, if Della was on Della's team, if Jennifer was on Jennifer's team, if David was on David's team, what would that person need? What would that person need? If you were on your team, what would you need? And I've asked that question myself because I feel like, man, I feel like I got to be everything to everybody and I can adapt based on situations. But if I had me on my team, what would I need? So folks, we've been on a journey this last 45 to 50 minutes. We've learned about ourselves. We've learned about what really needs to happen in organizations, but we need to slow down to meet our people where they are. We need to connect with them. We need to work on more effective and efficient process, and we need to embrace and lean into the technological capabilities we have and implement them the right way. So, if we've questions, I want to let you know if you've questions, feel free to reach out. I will tell you, Educate 360, we are on LinkedIn just in case we are posting all kinds of things when our webinars are, when we have new things coming out. feel free to check us out on LinkedIn. If you have questions for me too, I'm always a resource if you want. We really believe in supporting and making sure that our people are supported. That's the most important thing. Yes, this would qualify as one PDU. I get that as a question. Is this recording posted? Yes, it absolutely is. I'll let Mariella speak to that. But if you do have additional questions, I want to make sure, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to support. So, with that said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Mariella.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. J. I just wanted to take a second to answer this quick question on the recording. You will absolutely be getting a recording in your email after this session. So if you weren't able to attend the full session, do not fret. We got you covered. So be on the lookout for that. And we had just an amazing fruitful amount of awesome feedback. So thank you all so much for coming today, for your amazing participation in all the polls and all your amazing input. It is so great to see. So thank you all so very much. I will absolutely be reaching out to you all again with that recording and any additional resources. So thank you all so much for joining us, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much, Dr. J, for all your amazing insight.
Of course, appreciate all of you.
All righty. Have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll hopefully see you all very soon in the classroom. Bye for now.